There's also a quote that stuck with me, and it goes like this. There are two pains in life. The pain of discipline, which weighs ounces, and the pain of regret, which weighs tons. It's simple, it's real, and I've lived them both. When most people hear the word discipline, they think of punishment, rules, restrictions. But for me, discipline saved my life. Not because I was always disciplined, and definitely not because I always got it right. In fact, let me just say, I fall off track more often than you might think. But every time I fall off, I get back up. And every time I get back up, I stay on track a little longer. I stay grounded a little deeper. And eventually, that pattern of getting back up, that becomes discipline. You see, discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed even when you don't feel like it. Actually, who am I kidding? Especially when you don't feel like it. And if you may so happen to be wondering, well, where did you learn that? Let me just say, I didn't read it in a book. I didn't hear it from some motivational speaker. Well, actually, I guess you can call her motivational speaker. I saw it every single day from my mother, the first motivational speaker I ever met. She didn't wait for motivation to do things. She moved because she had a mission. And that is where my understanding of discipline began. But it wouldn't be my last lesson. I can remember it like it was yesterday. We were living in Kingston, Jamaica, where I was born, and I was about 7 or 8 years old, full of energy, curiosity, and rebellion. And my mother, Barbara Thompson, she was a force, a school teacher, a leader, a disciplinary. Not in the sense of yelling or punishment, even though she was very good at that, but more so in her consistency. She got up every morning before the sun rose. Rain, sleet, or blazing Caribbean heat, she dressed herself with purpose, not just for herself, but for her children. She didn't have the luxury of feeling like it. And I now know that someday she must have been tired to her soul. But she went, she taught, and when she came home, she still had enough energy to discipline me and my siblings. Actually, more so just me. I was more than a handful. She would say to me, "Go grab your book. Let me see what you did in school today." And it would always be at the moment where I was just having a blast. I was starting to think like, you ain't want to see me having fun, mama? But I played it cool, even though in that moment my heart dropped, because I know at lunchtime I played and I daydreamed most of the time in class. But I couldn't let her see that outright. So I'd go grab my bag and take my book out, and I'd skip through to see what I did in school that day myself. And as I'd skip through the page and I'd find where it was, I'd say, wait, hold on, I ain't do too much today. And I'd skip the next day, I'm like, ooh, this ain't good. Now I start talking to myself, Rick, you gotta do better. And then it clicked. Okay, quickly put a lesson together. So I put something together, look at the other pages, add some numbers, and I wrote something quickly. And then my mother would say, what's taking you so long? And I'd say, I'm coming, mommy. I'd finish up, put the book back in the bag, and then walk over to her. And she'd look at me like, why you bring the bag to give me? Take the book out. So I'd take the book out and I'd give it to her. Whole time my heart's racing. She skips through it and she says, these people ain't teaching you nothing in school. I gotta get you out of there. And I'd say, thank you, Lord. She didn't realize that was fresh pencil. At times, she would have us stay up until 10, 11 o'clock at night studying. Now, I had a very good day at school playing at lunchtime and playing at karate after school, so I was exhausted. But my sisters, they were good. They've been doing it for a while, and they were all about academics, scholars. I was Mr. Fun. So when we'd be up and I was be falling asleep, she'd say to me, "You have to fight the sleep." And I'd look at her like, "Lady, are you crazy? You know what I did in school today?" What was she preparing me for? I didn't know then, but I know now. Life. You see, it wasn't out of anger, but out of care, out of love, and to assure her children's success. Let me just say, I tested her. From sneaking outside to go play when she told me not to. I mean, all she had to do was just turn her back for a little minute, I'm out the door. Or some days I would pray one of her good friends call and she'd start laughing on that phone. That's my cue, I'm outside. I'm running across rooftops. I'm venturing off to different neighborhoods about 2 to 3 miles away. Y'all, I'm 7, 8 years old at this time. Like, what was I thinking? Eventually, as I'm having a blast away from the neighborhood, I'd hear somebody walk in the street yelling my name, "Rick!" Automatically, my heart dropped. The crazy lady's looking for me. If it wasn't those moments of her doing that to somewhat squeeze me back in line, right? You see, Caribbean parents don't have to say much. Their tone carries the weight of the law, and even just one look will straighten you up. But throughout all of that, it wasn't the yelling that stayed with me, but more so her consistency, her willpower. Her actions spoke louder than her words. Over time, I realized that was her version of a fighter's discipline. Not combat boots, but lesson plans written sometimes only hours before work. She despised writing those things. She would say, "I wish they'd just let me teach without having to write these lesson plans." She was so proficient at what she did that sometimes they would assign her to challenging students to work with. And some of those students would move up 2 academic grade levels. A few of them went on to become teachers themselves, and they would come back and say to her, it was the impression that she left upon them was to why they became teachers. At times she would tease us and say, "You know, if I didn't have you kids, I'd be a doctor." And when I got a little older, I said to her back one day, "So why didn't you?" She didn't bite. She just simply said, "Because I love teaching." Seeing her stand tall despite exhaustion became my blueprint. She didn't wait for motivation to do things. She moved because she has a mission. And later on in life, when I put on a uniform of my own, I learned a whole different side of discipline. I served 4 years in the United States Air Force as an aircraft armament system technician, also known as weapons, loading munitions on the F-16, bombs, missiles, chaff and flare. When I separated from the military in 2017, I didn't walk out feeling like I had it all together. There was no more mission, no more chain of command, no uniform, just me. I decided to move back to New York and into my mom's house thinking maybe I'd find my footing again, that her familiar presence would help me reconnect with something stable, and for a time, it did. But the world doesn't stand still. Am I right? One day she looked at me and said something simple but heavy. Son, you got to go back out there and face the world again. I knew she was right, but I wasn't ready. I wanted to figure out my own thing. I needed time. You see, no one prepares you for what happens after the discipline of military life. No one tells you how much you depend on that external structure when it's gone. When I tried reconnecting with old friends or even family members, it seems they no longer understood me, nor I them. I dreaded going outside and found solace in my room in the dark, listening to motivational speakers over and over. Combating depression, anxiety, and that adjustment disorder is no joke. In March of 2019, just when I thought I couldn't break any further, I lost my mother to cancer. When she left this world, the last piece of my structure left with her, and I collapsed. The structured days, deployments, TDYs, all gone. With no real plan, no purpose. I ended up sleeping in my car for a few months. And I want to just make this clear. You see, I wasn't financially challenged. I wasn't broke, but I was broken. That was a new low for me. I think they call it rock bottom. You see, rock bottom doesn't just exposes you, it invites you. It forces you to rebuild or give up completely. And I pray you choose to rebuild. Because if you decide to give up because that's the easy thing to do, your life will be hard. There's two sayings that I want to share with you, and there's a passage in the book of Matthew. I'm no expert on the Bible, but there's a passage in there that I definitely want to add to just bring it all full circle. The first one is, when you're going through hell, go through it. Don't stop. When life gets tough, get through the rough parts, get to where the roses are red, the violets are blue, then you can take a break and say, ooh, I give up. Because at that time, it won't be giving up, it will just you be recuperating. And then once you get back up and you realize your scars has healed and your mental fortitude has developed, you'd start looking at other things and saying, you know what, let me try that. You know, that what I went through before, it wasn't too bad. I can do that too. The perfect example is when I wrote my first book, Warrior Way to Success. The young lady who helped me put the book together, she said, we have the chapters outlined, now it's time to start writing. At that time, I was working on the Shakespeare play, As You Like It, at the Delacorte Theater in Central Park. I would get up in the mornings, I would write, then I'd go do the play, and depending on how I played the character that day or that night, I'd go home and start working on him again to tighten up certain things that I didn't believe I did well. Then after that, I would write again. But you see, there's a time when the muse doesn't visit you, and then I'll be at that computer for a few hours trying to figure out what's to say next. Then it started getting frustrating. Then I was on a time crunch because I wanted to release the book on my mother's birthday, so I had that weighing on me as well. So throughout that whole process, it felt like I was going through hell. But I persisted. And when I got through it, I got to the end, I said to the young lady that helped me put the book together, I said, I'm never doing that again. And she said, I said the same thing too. I said, yeah, but me and you different. I mean this. Now that I'm through it, and my mental fortitude has developed, and I'm looking back at that moment, I'm saying to myself, that wasn't so bad. You know what? I'm ready to write another book. The second saying is, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. Push through it. In the book of Matthew, it says, I believe this is Matthew 7, verse 14 through 15. It says, "Enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it. But narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it." Be one of the few. Let me get back on track now. I dare to say you can learn a lot about yourself when sleeping in a car. Not metaphorically, but literally. Engine off in the cold, cracked windows in the heat. I would sometimes park near the house we once lived in, laying there thinking to myself, how did I get here? Silly question. The military taught me how to load bombs on jets worth millions, but it didn't teach me how to handle grief or rebuild from nothing. No one can teach you that. I was angry. Angry at myself, angry at life, angry that I didn't have it all figured out like I thought I should. In those quiet, cold, humbling nights, a tiny voice whispered to me. And no, I was not going crazy. It said, win the day. Not figure out your whole life, just win the day. What does that look like for you? I'm so simple, I'm gonna keep it simple with you guys. Get up, make your bed, go for a walk, go for a run, go to the gym, move your body even when your mind's telling you you can't. What did that look like for me at that time? I'd pull that seat back up. I had my toothpaste, toothbrush, and a little water in the car, so I'd brush my teeth. I had my duffel bag in the trunk, so I'd grab it, and when I go to the gym, I'll take a shower, do a workout. At that time, I was using the car to do Uber. So when some passengers would come in, I'd strike up a conversation with them, find out what's going on, and then I'm, depending on what it was, now I'm offering them words of advice and motivation. I got a few good reviews on the app to claim my stake that I did that. I'd go to the library from time to time and just study. I kept moving, even when I didn't want to. You see, that voice, it wasn't heroic, it wasn't loud, but it was consistent. And slowly, very slowly, I can be a little hard-headed at times, I started listening more and more. That was the beginning of my discipline. Not the military kind, not my mother's kind, but the kind born in silence and sustained by pain. The kind that says, even when no one's looking, still show up for yourself. The kind that says, even when no one's watching, still show up for yourself. That carried me to my next chapter, rebuilding through art. That tiny voice that said, win the day, it became an anchor. And it led me to something I never expected. Shakespeare. Yes, you heard that right. I said Shakespeare. You know, sonnets like, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more temperate and more lovely. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. That's one of my favorite sonnets. I only know about 3 of them, but that one good. I had to memorize that one. I was introduced to a program called Decruit, founded by Army veteran Stefan Wolfert. In one of our lessons, Stefan said something that stuck with me. Veterans are militarized, but never demilitarized. Those words hit home. He also went on to teach us about the iambic pentameter, which unbeknownst to us at that time is a rhythm pattern in which Shakespeare writes that mirrors box breathing. We wrote, we spoke, we all cried. I can remember before it was my time to go up and share, I was saying to myself, look at all these saps crying. I'm not doing that when I go up there. What did I do? You may have said cried, but I like to say I shed a tear. That's it, that's all I did. However, in the very beginning, just before our emotions would overflow, Stefan would have us switch from the personal stories that we wrote to our assigned Shakespeare text expressing those feelings through his words. To be honest, at first it felt strange. And I was saying to myself, man, I'm not coming back here. This don't make no sense. This is silly. But I kept going. And gradually, I began to depend on the process, becoming vulnerable in front of people I once considered strangers. That process of emotional release was transformative. Inspired by Decruit, I eventually enrolled in a 1-year acting conservatory at New York Film Academy. Acting became my new foundation. I was now surrounded by young adults chasing their dreams. And now discipline had a new shape. Not orders, not grief, but creative consistency. From showing up to rehearsals, memorizing lines, breathing through performance, all became part of my emotional rehab. This was my new mission. This was the structure I had been missing, and for the first time in a long time, I was where I was supposed to be. It felt becoming. I can still recall sitting in class saying to myself, thank you, Lord. I finally found it. After graduating, I auditioned for the role Nelson Green in the play Wedding Band, a love and hate story in black and white written by the late great Alice Childress and directed by, at that time, Awoye Timpo. Nelson was a young soldier on leave who would soon return. At first, I treated it like any other role. Do the work, study the lines, rehearse, perform. But during rehearsals, something started to happen. Something I never expected. Nelson had a deep bond with his mother, a woman who would soon have to leave behind again. And after a while, I realized I wasn't just acting, I was reliving. Every scene with his mother felt like a conversation I never got to finish. The actress who played my mother gave me a gift I never knew I needed. A second chance to say hello and see you later. Now I want to be completely honest with you. My grief didn't just magically disappear, but it had been honored, spoken aloud, and shared. That's the discipline of art. The courage to feel. The willingness to return to the wound, not to reopen it, but to clean it. to breathe through it and let it finally heal. You see, it wasn't just therapy or performance. It was a purpose worth being disciplined for. I wasn't just acting. It was my way of coming back to life. Because for a long time, I felt nothing inside. Sometimes people say to me, "Man, you're so disciplined." Like it's a gift I was born with. Let me just say, discipline isn't a trait. It's a decision. Every morning I wake up, I don't feel like being disciplined. I don't leap out of bed ready to take over the world. I don't know if you guys remember, there's a cartoon called Pinky and the Brain, and I promise it's gonna make sense. Let me just tie it in. Watch me work. Pinky and the Brain were these two lab mice, and of course, you know, human beings like experimenting on things. They wanted to make them more intelligent. The experiment worked, but they pretended to be no more intelligent than they already were. Every time they woke up, Pinky would say to the Brain, "What are we doing today, Brain?" And the Brain would say, "The same thing we do every day, Pinky. Try to take over the world." You see, I don't wake up like Pinky every morning. He get up, he's on 100. Some days I don't even feel like getting out of bed. But then I hear that little voice that says, "Win the day." And I'm like, all right. But when I'm not moving fast enough, there's a saying my mother would always tell us in Jamaica when we slept in a little late. Proverbs 6, verse 10, she would say, "A little sleeping and a little folding of thine arms, so shall thy poverty come." When I hear that one play in my mind, I get up, no pressure. Let me go ahead and do what I need to do. Me and poverty, we ain't a thing. So I get up, I make my bed, I give God thanks for seeing another day. I'll go to the gym, or if I have pressing work to do, I'll do the work first and then say the gym is my reward. It's something I love doing, so it's like, all right, this is how I'm disciplining myself, because my parents are no longer here to do it. I'm not a kid anymore, so this is what I need to do. I don't get to go play, which is exercise, go to the gym, lift up weights, put it back down, run on the treadmill. I don't get to do that until I finish the work I need to do. I would also listen to someone's story who's been through the fire and made it out. Some days back then, that's all I did. But even on those days, I was still choosing discipline. And here's the most powerful part. Over time, those small wins, they add up. They build belief. And eventually you didn't just get back on the horse, you learned how to ride it. That's all this thing is about. Learning how to manage you, this vessel that we live in, showing it that you're in charge. Okay, tools. What are the tools I'm leaving you with before you get out of here? What does discipline look like in my day-to-day life now? I can assure you it's not some Instagram-worthy routine. It's real, it's raw, and sometimes it's just survival with structure. I'm very simple. I've been saying it all throughout. These are the things I do throughout my day. But with every foundation, as you grow older and you get more wiser, you add more to it to stabilize it, and you continue to build. I get up, I make my bed, very simple. I read my Bible, right? I know I need that divine energy to get me throughout the day, because when my energy fails me, I want Him to take me where my feet may fail. I work out, I go to the gym, I exercise, right? Why is that? It releases serotonin, dopamine. The hippocampus, which is a part of the brain that is concerned with learning and memory, it grows in size over time. So I think with all that playing I was doing when I was younger, and now transitioning to exercise, my hippocampus has gotten to the point where it's like, okay, now we're ready, he can do more things now. Let's make him a speaker, let's make him an author, let's make him a writer. I played so much, my hippocampus got to the size where it's helping me out do more stuff in life. I have a whiteboard that I write my task on that I want to accomplish. And I have my long-term goals on there as well, and I read it over and over and over every morning. I don't allow my mind to just roam freely. I'm controlling the spirit of my day. I'm reminding my mind of the tasks that we need to accomplish daily. They say a ship without a destination will end up never leaving the port, or if it does, it will end up drifting aimlessly at sea, shipwreck, or wash ashore, somewhere it never intended to be. This is the best supercomputer we will ever have. So if you train it and read those things that you wanted to accomplish daily and be considerate of what you're taking in, it will start showing you tasks and giving you things to help you get to your destination. And it's on you now to make sure you do those things that it presents you. This is the best supercomputer you will ever have. It created the supercomputer. Even when I feel like doing nothing, I do those things. Because if I can complete one task, I've proven to myself that I'm still in charge. I also feed my mind. I listen to motivational talks from people who resonate with me. From Les Brown, Eric Thomas, Zig Ziglar, Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Lisa Nichols, Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, and many more. Depending on what season I'm in, dictates who I draw on for inspiration. These are people who remind me that discipline is built in the dark. That falling isn't failure, it's simply just part of the plan. And when I feel weak, I remember my mother. I remember what she endured. I remember how she fought for her life to remain with her family. I remember that everything I do now is bigger than just me. These small daily rituals, they're not just about alignment. It's about choosing the man I am becoming over and over again. Sometimes people say to me, I want to be more disciplined, but I keep falling off. And I say to them, that's normal. You're doing great. You're not broken, you're human. The key isn't to avoid falling. The key is to rise with more intention each time you do. And here's what changed everything for me. I stopped doing it just for me. I started thinking about the next generation. My mother migrated to the US to give us, her children, more opportunities to live a better life. She didn't get to see the full impact of her decision, but I live in it every day. And now I want to be the reason someone else rises. My future children and someone listening to this talk today. The discipline I practice now, it's not just about productivity. It's about legacy. It's about moving the needle forward so that one day my children's children's children will never start from where I started. They'll start from where I finished. So if you've been waiting for a reason to get back up, this is it. And if you're wondering where to start with what's in front of you. Win the day. Again and again and again. until it's no longer your story of survival, but your story of transformation. Until it's no longer just survival, but your story of transformation. Discipline isn't a burden. It's a gift. One you pass down through consistency, through resilience, and through love. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.